Welcome to Funkso Learn, your channel for exploring the rich connections between Korean, Chinese, and Japanese languages and cultures. Have you ever wondered why so many words in these languages sound similar? Or how Korean and Japanese speakers can sometimes read Chinese characters without speaking Chinese? Today, we'll dive into the historical reasons behind these linguistic ties and explore when and why the languages began to evolve separately. The primary reason for the shared vocabulary and similar pronunciations between these languages lies in the widespread influence of classical Chinese, starting around the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 AD. At that time, China's cultural and political influence reached across East Asia, and Chinese characters became the writing system used for official communication, literature, and academic works in Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. This system of writing, known as Hanja in Korean and Kanji in Japanese, played a crucial role in shaping the development of these languages. Korea adopted Chinese characters as early as the 4th century, during the period of the Three Kingdoms, Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. Chinese became the language of scholarship and governance. For centuries, Koreans wrote almost exclusively in Chinese characters, even though spoken Korean is grammatically different from Chinese. It wasn't until the 15th century, when King Sejong created Hangul in 1443, that Korea began to establish its own writing system. Hangul was designed to better represent the Korean language's sounds and grammar, making reading and writing more accessible to the common people. However, Chinese characters, or Hanja, were still widely used in formal contexts for centuries after Hangul was invented. Similarly, Japan began using Chinese characters in the 5th century when Chinese writing and culture were introduced through Korea. At the time, Japan didn't have a formal writing system, so kanji was adapted to write the Japanese language. Over time, the Japanese developed their own phonetic scripts, hiragana and katakana, which were used alongside kanji to better represent the grammatical structure of Japanese. This mix of kanji, for meaning, and hiragana and katakana, for sound, created the unique Japanese writing system we see today. Japan continued to borrow Chinese vocabulary, especially during the Nara period, 710–794 AD, and Heian period, 794–1185 AD, when Chinese culture and Buddhism heavily influenced Japan. The split between these languages started to become more pronounced with the development of these native writing systems, Hangul in Korea and Kana in Japan. However, despite the creation of their own writing systems, Chinese characters remained integral to both languages for centuries. For example, during the Joseon dynasty, 1392 to 1897, in Korea, both Hanja and Hangul were used side by side. Scholars and officials often used Hanja, while Hangul was used for communication with the common people. In Japan, kanji still forms a core part of the writing system, with hiragana and katakana complementing it. Let's take a look at some shared vocabulary. The word for library in Chinese is tushuguan, tashuwan. In Japanese, it's tushuguan, toshokan, and in Korean, it's dosorobwan, dosorobwan. They all use the same Chinese characters, but the pronunciations differ slightly because of how the languages evolved separately. So why can Korean and Japanese speakers sometimes read Chinese characters even today? It's because Chinese characters are logograms, symbols that represent meanings rather than specific sounds. For example, the character for fire is huo, pronounced huo in Chinese, hai in Japanese, and hwa in Korean. While the pronunciation varies, the meaning stays the same across all three languages. The Tang dynasty, 618–907 AD, was a particularly important period for the spread of Chinese culture and writing across East Asia. Scholars from Korea and Japan traveled to China to study its language, philosophy, and literature, bringing back Chinese ideas that would shape their own cultures. During this period, Chinese poetry, especially Tang poetry, became a major influence in Korea and Japan, and many texts were written in classical Chinese. This period of cultural exchange helped cement Chinese as the foundation of scholarly and literary work in both Korea and Japan. However, as each country developed its own identity, the languages began to split more distinctly. In Korea, the use of Hangul increased after its invention, and in Japan, hiragana and katakana were developed to supplement kanji and make the writing system more flexible for native Japanese grammar. The divergence of these languages was gradual but became more pronounced as local writing systems grew in popularity and Chinese influence lessened. Statistics show that around 60–70% of Korean and Japanese vocabulary is still derived from Chinese characters, particularly in academic, technical, and formal contexts. Despite the different writing systems, the historical influence of Chinese remains strong, explaining why many words sound similar and why reading Chinese characters is still possible for Korean and Japanese speakers today. To sum up, the shared vocabulary and ability to read Chinese characters in Korean and Japanese stem from centuries of Chinese cultural influence, beginning with the adoption of Chinese characters during the Han and Tang dynasties. Even though these languages have developed their own writing systems, Hangul in Korea and Kana in Japan, the foundation of Chinese characters has left a lasting impact on how these languages evolved. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more about the history and connections between these languages and cultures, be sure to subscribe to Funkso Learn. Hit the bell icon for daily lessons and insights into Korean, Chinese, and Japanese languages and cultures. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next lesson.